On your feet! Get them going!
Good afternoon, good evening, good morning. Whatever the case may be, welcome back to Cross Examinations Live. I'm your host, Mike S. Miller. I'm not a pastor, priest, rabbi, blah, 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 blah. I'm just a guy on the internet, spent a lot of time in the Bible, and now I'm here to share that time with you. Welcome to the channel. If you're new, please do hit that like and subscribe button. And if you're not new, then welcome back, Fellowship of the Cross Examinators. Hi, Amy. Amy's actually here. What's up? I don't know what to do. We finished Galatians. I thought about going into Romans. But until that is the case, we're going to go back into this debate with Alex O'Connor and the Connectleys and Phil something or other. I don't know who Phil is, so I'm gonna dissect his topic as well. But what's up, Joe? So I'm just gonna jump right into it. Tell me if it echoes. I've been having an issue with it actually echoing when I. Oops, dang it! I hit the wrong button. I'm an idiot. All right. Tell me if it echoes.
Biblical God. Over 40% are then agnostic and say that they are not sure. So the highest level of thinking, at least here in the U.S., Oxford.
Is this echoing? Do I have to wear my headphones for this? Corpse Grinders back. He says, "Yep." Is that yes? It's echoing. Okay. Dadgummit. All right. I hate wearing these things. I despise wearing headphones, but I will do it for you, the chat, because I love you so much. Oh, video echoes. Yes. All right. Let's continue listening to what Stuart is saying. Honestly, my brain just farted. What the heck was he saying?
And
oh, by the way, hello, Corpse Grinder, and hello. Oh, who else is here? Oh, that's just it. All right.
They outright say, the majority say that there is a biblical God that exists.
Okay, I'm going to skip this entire topic because I frankly don't care about the consensus of people in regard to science or faith. Truth, whether it be science, whether it be faith, is not dependent on popularity. So I'm gonna just try to skip through this entire debate portion because I know they go back and forth on it. To me, it's like
you got to get to know your partner a little bit better there, Alex. I saw him talking to Richard Dawkins not too long ago briefly. I caught a couple snippets, and oddly enough, it was on the teleological argument and free will. And Dawkins now calls himself a cultural Christian, and he says, I have no idea what to do with the teleological argument.
I still don't care.
I just want to be sure. Maybe this is the last point, and then we'll kick it back into that. You bet.
So I want to know what kind of revelation Alex wants, and what kind of revelation does he want the boy in Myanmar or wherever else to have in order to believe in God, for this God to believe.
All right, let's see what his answer is.
Can I reply to that first about the Harvard Med?
I don't care.
Biology,
I don't care.
Like that.
I don't care.
On that very program, in fact, Justin Briley, the host, but you didn't really answer any of the points that I made about either the beginning of the universe. You said that there was evidence for the beginning of the universe. I'd love to know what that evidence is.
Okay, this is something that confuses. All right, I'll be upfront with you. I'm not completely 100% up to date on the latest theories. I think possibly quote unquote science, quote unquote science, meaning scientists who are evolutionists and don't want to believe in God, found themselves in a little bit of a sticky wicket when they did the math on the Big Bang, and they discovered that because the universe is expanding from a central point, according to redshift and all that fun stuff in science, the observable evidence. If you wind the clock back, that means that it all started at a singularity. I don't know. I don't know what evidence they may have come up with theories and stuff, because this is what they do, right? When the evidence points to something that discounts their worldview, they come up with theories to excuse it. Just like with evolution, it's like clearly it's natural selection is the mechanism by which. Oh crap! There's not enough time for mechanism. Punctuated equilibrium. Yes, that's what happened. There were mass events that wiped out things, and then there was rapid evolutionary change. Okay, stop just coming up with theories. When your theory gets... I was going to say a bad word. I don't say bad words. When your theory gets jammed up by the facts, don't change the theory. Go where the facts lead. They're so hung up on evolution, be it planetary evolution, which, as I explained last night, was demolished 30 years ago, 28 years ago, by an astronomer who discovered 2 Jovian-class planets circling its sun every 24 hours, completely demolishing the planetary evolution theory. What do we do now? Come up with a new theory. You know what? Instead, let's bury that information. Never mention it again. Evolution and Big Bang are different topics. You don't have to believe both. Right? But that's the thing, is like, so for eons and eons, even in Joseph Smith's time, that's why Mormonism has an eternal universe, because in Joseph Smith's time, the prevailing theory was that the universe was simply eternal and static, right? When they discovered redshift and that the universe is expanding, the only logical conclusion is that if you wind the clock back, it comes back to a singularity. I don't know what the theories, but I guarantee you they're just theories that excuse that singularity. They excuse the fact that the universe did, by the available facts, have a beginning. Rain asks, what's wrong with punctuated equilibrium? It's just saying that species diversify into new niches when they become vacant. Well, they came up with punctuated equilibrium because they did the math on evolution. They realized there's no flipping way there's enough time. Never mind on the history of the 4 billion years of Earth, but in the 18 billion years of the galaxy, or of the universe, there's just not enough time for evolution to have taken place. This is a very... If you sit down and do the math on the time it takes for a mutation to overtake a parent species, a daughter species is the mutated, right? In order for the daughter species to take over the parent species, or even to have a big enough foothold to become its own species, it's a successful species is successful because it's successful in space. If you add a tiny, and that's the thing, it's like mutations are supposed to be tiny little insignificant changes, right? And then they add up over time. Well, you have to do the math on this. It's one thing when you're talking about germs, right? Something that replicates very, very rapidly to the course of, millions every month or whatever. However fast germs replicate. It's one thing. Although, oddly enough, you never get to anything but another germ. You think 4 billion years is not enough? Have you ever sat down and done the math? 4 billion years is not enough time for a wolf-like creature to become a whale. Forget the dinosaurs and the amoeba and everything else that you had to get through to get to the wolf-like creature. It's very... It sounds like a lot of time. It sounds like a lot of time. But do the math. And I'm not going to sit here and do it for you. Do the math, because, okay, think of this. Whales mature about at the same rate as human beings. right? So just call it a 20-year generation, right? It is a lot of time. Rain, I want you to sit down and please do the math for us. Oh, bloody hell. All right, so think about if you have a creature. Well, just look at the rabbit, right? We've got rabbits. Let me see. Rabbits in the fossil record. Rabbits can be found in the fossil records tens of millions of years before the KT boundary. So what does that make it? How old? All right, let me just ask Grok. It's easier to ask Grok. How old is the oldest rabbit fossil? 53 million years ago. All right, so 53. Oh, wait, these are not direct ancestors of modern rabbits. No. How old is the oldest I don't want to say contemporary. What's a good word? Lagomorph fossil. Is the fossil of the Mimotona identical to modern rabbit? Okay, other than size. All right, I got to look up a Mimotona fossil. So, but what you've got here, fossil. Ah, dang it, I was typing too fast. I want to see the actual fossil, please. Images of the. Seriously, all you have is the jaw. All right, here I'm looking up this. These are obviously artist renditions. What I want is the actual. I wonder if they have a complete Mimotona fossil. No, all they have is a damn jaw. All right. What is the oldest? What is the oldest complete fossil? Okay. Complete. So that would be the Desmatologus. 28 million years ago. Well, where is it? They said this is the oldest rabbit. All right, I don't want to spend all day looking for fossils. Let's just say you had 28 million years. I'm not even going to go with the 53 million year fossil, which was because it was just a jaw. 28 million years. It's still a rabbit. Oh no, it's got some minor evolution. Its jaw's a little different. Its tooth is a little different. Okay. And actually, I can make that argument for the 55 million years because that was the argument that Grok was giving me, that the differences in the Mimotoma and the modern rabbit is like the teeth are a little different and the size is a little different. It's a freaking rabbit from the fossil record 55 million years ago. How fast do rabbits replicate? Right? Because you would say to me, 55 million years is a lot of time, right? And you have to remember the 4 billion years, life didn't start 4 billion years ago, according to evolution. The planet started 4 billion years ago. I thought this channel chased squirrels, not rabbits. That's true. So just call it 50 million years. 50 million years out of your however long. Rabbits are still freaking rabbits. They replicate so fast. You could have how many? All right, here, I'm going to ask another fun question. Here we go. With one healthy breeding pair of rabbits, given ideal circumstances, which is not whatever, how many rabbits would breed in the course of 100 years? Grok is doing all the math for me. After 10 years. Okay. So clearly this is impossible because there are such things as wolves and blah, blah, blah. But on the scale of how many rabbits there, it's literally, it says it's an unfathomably large number beyond practical computation. It's 37 to the 100th power. That's how fast rabbits breed in 100 years, right? It's a constant, and they're always under stress, right? They're always under, there are predators. So if they're a, what is it? They're a what's it called? What is the name of the source of a predator's food? Right? Rabbits are like wolf food. Rabbits are coyote food. Rabbits are cat food. Rabbits are dog food. Rabbits are the food for predators. Prey. They're a prey food. Yeah. I'm so stupid. So they are an animal that has the highest sort of motivation to evolve. Yet somehow, 50 million years at the highest rates of reproduction. And what? Oh gosh, their teeth changed a little bit. Their size changed a little bit. Yeah, do you feel me? Now do something like the wolf-like animal that doesn't breed 4 times a year, but that takes 15 years to mature, and then realize that the rabbit population is all over. Currently it's all over the world because they've been exported, but the rabbit population's everywhere. There's gazillions. I know that's not a technical term. What is the current rabbit population on Earth? I love Grok. Grok gives me these answers so quickly. I don't have to look it up on the websites. 700 million. All right. What is the current whale population on Earth? 1.5 million. All right. So you've got 700 times as many rabbits breeding at a rate probably, let's see, if they breed 3 times a year. Actually, how many times can they breed? How many times a year can a rabbit breed? I know freaking cats can breed like 3 times a year. 12. Rabbits can breed 12 times a year. So if you multiply, so rabbits breed 144 times faster, roughly, than whales. They have a 700-fold population. And there's like practically no evolution in 50 million years. Are you getting the there's not enough time thing? That's because they do very well in their niche. Everything that is a successful species does well in its niche. That's why they're successful. Rain, everything, absolutely every creature, insect, everything on Earth is doing well in its niche, and they always have. That's why they are successful. If they're not successful, they die out. Therefore, they cannot mutate, and there's not enough in their population to have a beneficial mutation. You understand? Mutations alone are a high rarity, right? Just mutations. Almost every single mutation is detrimental or benign, right? It either does nothing, like the six-toed cat in Key West, or it's bad for the creature, and that mutation gets weeded out, because it's just not a benefit. So in order to have a successful beneficial mutation, you have to have a vast population breeding, which requires that species is always already successful. And then if it's already successful, that one beneficial mutation has to be so beneficial that it overtakes the previous population, or at least it forms its own group, which actually that is the idea. It forms its own genetic pool, and then that genetic pool is so successful that it overtakes the niche of that population. This is basic stuff, but nobody ever does the math. Most evolution doesn't come from mutation, by the way. It's the only mechanism for change in Darwinian evolution. What is the other mechanism for change that you posit exists to make genetic alterations in a genome, in a species? Corpse Grinder says, but the environment changes and they spread to new areas. Those pressures cause changes. Pressures can't cause changes. What can cause change is you have example, the moth. There was a population of moth in I think it was England, and evolutionists used to use this as an argument for beneficial mutation. What happened is, there was this population of moth, and as soot started to gather on the buildings and whatnot, the white moths that used to be part of that population, they stuck out like a sore thumb on the soot, and so they started getting eaten by the birds, right? So eventually, the white moth genetic variable in that moth population was wiped out. That's like selective breeding, right? So what you've done is you've gotten rid of the white gene in that moth's DNA. That didn't add information to the moth. It deleted information. It's just like when you selectively breed dogs so that you have, a mutt, you have two mutts, and then you have a litter, and then one of the mutts in the litter is white. And then you're like, all right, so I'm going to breed this white dog. Okay, say two of them are white. I'm gonna breed these white ones so that we have more white dogs. And then you don't breed the other ones, you get rid of the other ones. And then their litter, you still have some of the muddy brown or black dogs, but now you have 4 of them that are white in the litter. All right, and get rid of the others. Don't breed the other ones. Now you're just breeding the white dogs. You do that long enough, you breed out the genetic variation of the browns and the blacks and the curly hairs and the long hairs, and you end up with freaking little white chihuahuas, right? We do that as a species, as a people. We do that on purpose to dogs. Well, you can have situations where the environment changes and it does weed out genetic variation from a particular population. That's just common sense. This is not adding information, right? It's like there's also this population of rabbits. I think this is also in England. For some reason, these all happen in England. And these rabbits went deaf. You know how they went deaf? Because there was one deaf rabbit. Or maybe two deaf rabbits. Maybe another rabbit with bad hearing. And because the foxes, coyotes, whatever in this particular area of these rabbits discovered that when a plane flies overhead, all that wonderful hearing that is the rabbit's best defense became moot, right? So the rabbits that use their hearing, as all rabbits do, as their greatest defense mechanism, I hear a twig break, I run, right? Well, they started picking those off. And so there was a deaf rabbit or a rabbit with bad hearing or whatever. And that rabbit, because it couldn't use its ears, it paid way more attention with its eyes for its defense mechanism. So you get rid of all the good hearing rabbits. Generally speaking, being deaf is not a beneficial mutation. Generally speaking, in any ordinary context, that rabbit would have been the first to go, right? But because whatever its genetic mutation was, or not mutation, what it was the loss of information, right? That's not a mutation. That is a, what do you call that? That's it's like if you're born without an arm, it's a deformation. It's a genetic deformation, right? In any other situation, that would have ended that lineage right there. But because in this particular area, hearing is not of value, the deaf rabbits started breeding. So now you have this little tiny population in this area around this airport where you have deaf rabbits. And they're the most successful because they lost information from their genetic. This is like a very interesting thing. It's not a mutation, it's a loss of information. Mutations add information. That almost is never beneficial. I can't figure out why after 500 million years there hasn't been a super predator that annihilated the food chain. We're working on it, buddy. All right. That's false recombination is a big factor. Recombination is existing information, right? It's like breeding a Chihuahua to a poodle. What's that called? All right. It's like breeding pedigree dogs and creating combination dogs. That's not adding information. That's not mutation. I grant you that's not mutation, but that is not adding information to the gene pool of the species. The species is dog. In the old days, if you look at an old dictionary, species means something that can interbreed, right? So all dogs are a species. We've done this thing where it's like, oh no, a Shih Tzu is a species, a poodle's a species, a wolf is a species. They're all dog. Dog is the species. In Christianese, you call that a kind. Evolution doesn't make any sense when you think about it. It doesn't. But it is indoctrinated into all of our public life. And then, as I said at the beginning, it's like the same way I wasn't going to let Cliff and Stewart hold up like popular vote of scientists as a determining factor of what is truth. Also, scientists' popular vote does not determine truth either. Even on the things that they're supposed to be expert at, right? Because believe it or not, experts in science disagree on stuff. They're not all in lockstep. So just because you have a PhD and you went to a fine college, someone else who has a PhD, went to the same college, got the same education, can come to different conclusions. And consensus is not how you do science. That's a bully word to try to silence people who don't agree with the consensus. That's how it works in modern academia. Spectre says there's no information to add or subtract. That's not how any of this works. Mutations add information. Selective breeding subtracts information. That is how this works. That is exactly how this works. Rob Schreiner, the kid with webbed toes was a freak in the desert, but a blessing to those who fished by diving. He had a better chance to spread his gene mutation on the island. Right. Okay. That's one mutation. And yeah, that is circumstantial whether or not it is a blessing or a curse. But again, 50 million years, rabbits are still rabbits. How are you going to get from a wolf-like creature to a whale, to a freaking blue whale? How are you going to get there, given the limitations of your population? Never mind. I gave you that there's 1.5 million whales, right? That's all of the whales. I'm not even talking about one specific, let's call it a species, right? I'm not even talking about narrowing the gene pool to one specific species of whale. What did I ask? I asked, okay. What is the total population of blue whales? 10 to 20,000. 10 to 20,000. And it takes them, I don't know if it takes them any longer. How long does it take for a blue whale to reach full maturity? 15 to 20 years. 15 to 20 years in a population of 20,000. Where are you going to get your mutations from? How many mutations would it take to get from your wolf-like creature? They can't even say whatever it is. It is the dumbest thing. The whale evolution argument is the dumbest argument in Darwinism or in modern evolution. They took 5 practically random skeletons, fossils. 5. They have 5. You're missing links for the wolf-like creature to the mother flippin' blue whale is 5 links. That's not a missing link. That is a missing chain. A missing chain with how many, again, these have to be minute mutations. How many of those do you need to get from a wolf to a whale, guys? Given a population size of, first of all, the first one, the population size of that wolf-like creature was 1, right? Whatever the mutation was that got that wolf-like creature on its way to becoming a blue whale, its population size was 1. Do you get the math problem here? You don't have enough genetic items or creatures in the gene pool to have beneficial mutations at all. Forget about it, right? When you have 20,000, that's your population limit. It's 20,000. Sure, maybe there were more in the past. Let's give it 10x, right? 200,000. That's still not enough for beneficial mutations. beneficial. Let's see how. In a healthy environment, what is the mutation rate of any given? Okay, in bacteria. Wait, I think I might be writing this. All right, so if you have, this is going into genomes. If you have 3 billion base pairs, you have roughly 60 to 100 new mutations per individual per generation. In fruit fly, oh wait, no, this is in. I think I'm asking this question wrong. 0.1 mutations per genome per generation. Oh, that's talking about fruit flies. Oh, that's another thing. They tried to force mutations in fruit flies, which, reproduce like freaking flies. And they could never get a beneficial mutation. I don't know. I'm not quite sure how to ask this question. So, anybody have any help in the chat? Mike just advocated for evolution. See, this is the squirrel level chasing I'm doing right here. I know I'm not doing the Bible study portion. I don't know what we should do, and I think I'm going to go until I have to pick up JoJo today. So I'll do that a little bit later. Evolution also doesn't happen at the individual level. It happens at the population level. An entire population doesn't mutate. One creature in the population mutates. Whatever that teeny little insignificant mutation is. They don't all mute. This is fantasy. What are you talking about? Stop saying information. There's no information to add or subtract. That's how genetics work. You know the DNA is information, right? DNA is a program. Not true. A point loss is still a mutation. I'm sorry, Mike, but that is just misinformation. So if someone is born without an arm, you're saying that's okay. We'll call it a mutation. It's generally speaking, that's not a plus. It's not a bonus. Pureblood says, can a monkey given a typewriter and paper and type a thesis in 1,000 years of evolution a troop ever? No, it's ridiculous. Yeah, but if we are that super predator, why do we care and have the intelligence to manage the ecosystem? Heck of a coincidence. No one has done that. Every domestic dog is Canis familiaris. Evidence determines truth. There is evidence for evolution. There's no evidence for creation. I suspect you've never looked into this. Because I know of many PhDs in biology and in other scientific studies that have looked into this and discovered that, wow, evolution does not hold water when you look at all of the evidence. Corpse Scanner says, there are coastal wolves with webbed feet that eat fish right now. It's in the works at the moment. See, you're going from webbed feet to a whale. That's really okay. I guess Species is not an organism that can reproduce under any circumstance. It is under natural circumstance, and species is a fuzzy term for our language because biology is messy. I won't disagree with that. That's why we have ring species. It's just I just know in modern context people use species much differently than they did 200 years ago. Godly Entertainment says 53 million years, rabbits are still rabbits? Yeah, duh. Evolution does not disagree with that. I imagine you are not a fan of inspiring philosophy. Oh, is that a name of a person? He's a Christian who believes in evolution. I was a Christian that used to believe in evolution before I started doing the study of the arguments against it, which make it does fall apart. If you when you study enough and you do the math like I just did, I didn't do an actual math calculation. I'm just showing you there's not enough time and there's not enough genetic material for whales to evolve. It's the difference between rabbits, which evolve what was the math? 700 times faster than wolves, with a population. Oh no, what was it? Yeah, 700 times. Oh, it was 700 times the population. No. It was way bigger than that. Never mind. Rabbits. Just because the evolution theory might have some things wrong doesn't mean that a bunch of shepherds from a traditionally backward area of the world got it right in their mythology. No, but God did. Are you D&Qing tonight? I believe so. I haven't thought about it. I just woke up and started this show. There is an antelope that can swim underwater and eats fish in the jungle right now as well. Wow. Is it still an antelope? There's humans that can hold their breath for 20 minutes. Does that make them whales? Does that make them on their way to being mermaids? Atheism implies belief without God. Where does the atheist gain footing? In their belief that random, meaningless chance plus the magical ingredient of time can cause the impossible to become possible. We have 10 to 20,000 whales now after a millennia of hunting. This is why non-experts should not be doing their own research. Well, that's why I gave you a 10x. I give you a 10x on the whale population. It doesn't matter how many. It's still a minimal gene pool. Look, we've primarily stopped hunting except in like 2 cultures, right? I think the only 2 cultures that still hunt whale are the Japanese and the not Ainu, Inuit. I can't think of anyone else that still hunts whales. Oh, so 2 little islands. Well, okay, the Inuit's on a big island, but 2 islands with a dozen whaling ships are going to decimate the 2 global oceans worth of whales. I mean, do you think is it because whales take so long? Why don't the whales mutate their way out of it? You're missing all the evidence because you don't want to see it. Show it to me. It seems to me that blue whales would have more drift with such a small population, but I am no expert. More drift? What do you mean? Spectre says, I'd love to jump into your Discord, call and explain this to you. Pachycetus isn't anything like a wolf. It's close to an omnivorous deer. It's okay. Does that change the argument? Does it somehow grant that whales take less time to breed and that they have, I mean, give them 100 times the population. The rabbits are still rabbits. Mutation is not an addition of information. It's a change. In change, subtraction, addition, or switching. Okay, fine. Let's go with that. I I get you don't understand how evolution works. Okay. Da, 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 da. 5 missing links. Please look up the fossil records of cetaceans. Have they added more since the 90s? Because this is when I did my research. I'm sure they probably looked at it and they go, oh crap, there's only 5. We better add some more. That's what what was his name? The guy that started this whole thing. It was Erasmus Darwin and I'm drawing a blank on his name. The guy that ran the British Museum of Natural History back in Erasmus Darwin's day. They were both atheists who were trying to find a reason how life could be without God. This is the whole modus and purpose of evolution, by the way, guys, is because these two guys, I think it was John Lamarck, they wanted to create a creation story, a creation myth that they could call science to discount the necessity of a creator. And so he goes through all the bones at the National Museum of, I think, London, and he finds some creatures that, oh, you know what, if I line these up, they do get bigger. They have some of the same characteristics. What if this little dog-like skeleton thing turned into the modern horse? And so they lined up, just like they did with the whale, right? They lined up these skeletons. They didn't even have the same bones, right? You have evolution where like bones move around the head and blah, blah. It's like, oh, this fuck. But it's like at first glance, you're like, oh, wow, yeah, look at that. It's like the monkey becoming a man thing, where the Piltdown Man and Nebraska Man turned out to be total complete frauds, but they were in science books for decades. They're probably still in science books. And so their creation myth that they popularized among other atheist scientists to force this on the people. And they did a great job. And they just kept piling it on and piling it on. And now you all think it's true because these two guys who hated God and wanted to find a way that we could have all of this amazing design in the universe without a designer made it up just like a religion. And you are all devotees to that religion. You don't have, skeptically pissed says, you don't have enough brain cells to have a basic understanding of how evolution works and have no idea that evolution by natural selection is the method of evolution. Right. I understand that. But natural selection of what? Of what? If they're all identical, then natural selection doesn't help. Right? You have to have a mutated change, a mutation from the norm that is more successful so that it can be selected, or it can survive better than the parent species. I understand how all this works, skeptic. They also say, was that amoeba man? We evolved from water, but we would have died from lack of oxygen, especially around over 3.5 billion years of water evolving. No, it's not water evolving. It's random chemicals in a primordial soup that got struck by lightning and magically, even though that in and of itself, abiogenesis is mathematically impossible as well. The math is insane on abiogenesis. For those of you who think that lightning can strike a puddle of chemicals and form protein chains, left and right-handed molecules of identical nature, 200 or more molecules long. The math on that is something like, I looked it up just in a previous show, is like 36 to the 100th power or something like that. That's a ludicrous number. It's so ludicrous as to be absurd if you think that that could have happened. And that's what you need for a reproducible amino acid. You can create a single strand, but for reproduction in amino acids, you have to have 2 strands that are identical, and the strands are randomized. It's like if you took a coin and you flipped it and you're like, okay, tails, and you write down tails, and then you go, okay, heads, and you write down heads, and you do that 200 plus times. I mean, these things can be thousands of strands long or molecules long. You do the 200 is like the minimum. It's like the bare minimum for reproduction. You do that, you flip the coin 200 times, right? In order to make a reproducible one, you have to have another strand that is the identical length and the identical pattern. And you basically zip those 2 up, and that's your first reproducible amino acid. Just that alone, if you're rational, you look at that and you say, yeah, good freaking luck with that ever happening. I'm going to skip down there. Oh my gosh, there's so many comments. I must be 20 minutes behind. Corpse Grinder says, lightning hitting a puddle, straw man. It's not a straw man. That's the point. It's so the theory, at least this is going back a few decades. Maybe they're coming up with new bullcrap theories now. But that is what is required for reproducible amino acids. It is the electrolysis. I don't know if this is electrolysis. What do you call it? Electricity breaking apart the molecules and creating left and right-handed molecules is that process. And then they form back together into strands. And the strands, again, are randomized, but you could have a whole bathtub full of strands at the microscopic level. You still have to find 2 identical strands for them to zip together and become the first reproducible amino acid. And then where do you go from there? Great. You've now got a strand of amino acids that can reproduce. Good on you. How are you going to get to a single cell? How are you going to get to all the various intricate mechanisms that are required to build a single cell? How are you going to get that just from a reproducible amino acid? If you think long and hard about this stuff, without a dog in the fight. See, that's the difference between Lamarck, Darwin, and most of you atheists who hate God. You have a dog in the fight. You don't want there to be a creator. And therefore, your conclusion before looking at the evidence is that this has to have happened through random, meaningless chance. Y'all should play the lottery. You're quoting Dr. Tour, whom every time he gets in a room with other PhD chemists explain to him how chemical evolution works, suddenly stops shouting and shuts up. I don't know who Dr. Tour is. I get this from A.E. Wilder-Smith, PhD. But you do have a dog in the fight. But I didn't when I came to this conclusion. That's what I was talking about earlier. Is I actually started my faith journey as a theistic evolutionist. So I didn't really care. I believed in the day age theory, was theistic evolution. I already said that, I think. But yeah, so when I started seeing that there was, because when I became a Christian, I had no idea that there was anybody that didn't even believe in evolution. That's how much I was raised believing this stuff, right? And so I started looking at it and I'm like, okay, that doesn't work. And that doesn't work. And, my brother, who's still an agnostic, he looks at evolution. He's like, yeah, that doesn't really add up. But if you need evolution because you your belief system is that there cannot be a creator. You do have a dog in the fight, and you cannot see the evidence objectively. You know, Mike, that evolution does not exclude a creator, merely a magic babysitter micromanaging a desert tribal culture. That's what I used to believe, Joe. But then I dived deep into all of the arguments, read books, watched a lot of content, read a lot of content online, just making the case, and it doesn't hold water. It don't hold water. Someone wins the lottery, says Corpse Grinder. Yeah, but in evolution's case, you'd have to win the lottery like every day for like 1 billion years. It's like, again, you'd win the lottery just having the one reproducible amino acid, right? Where do you go from there? Oh, good. It reproduced itself. Now you have 1 billion amino acids. How do you get to a rotary motor without intelligent design? Without some sort of mind telling those amino acids to form the proteins, to form the stator and all the different parts of the rotor, so that the flagellum and then the flagellum itself can actually spin and give locomotion to the cell. Never mind all of the other complex machinery inside of any given cell. How do you get there from a reproducible amino acid? It's like saying that, because that's what they call the first building block of life, right? But it's like, oh, great, you got a brick. Are the bricks going to form themselves into a cathedral? How do you get there from the brick? How do you get to the complexity of the simplest single cell from an amino acid? How? Think deeply about that. By change in function for each mechanism. How do you get to a mechanism from a single amino acid? There is no mechanism. There's only one freaking amino acid. That's all you have. How do you get from there to a mechanism? A flagella is powered by an ion pump. The ion pump works on its own. How do you get to the ion pump? So the motor that produces movement is also useful for another function. How do you get to the motor? Rain, think about this. How do you get from, it's like having, do you guys even know? Oh my gosh, this kills me. I'm gonna show you guys something. Not scientific. Right, evolution is not scientific. Thank you. Pumping ions. I bet those are some swole flagella. Science is based on what we can observe, test, experiment, and repeat with. So if you cannot observe something evolving, you are being religious. That's actually true. Let's see. Spectre says, if 98.6% can be called purity in silver, I'm comfortable noting that the purity of chemists support the hypothesis of abiogenesis. Well, they have to, don't they? What is this called? Let me see if I can find it. Microbiology mechanics. Okay. Bacterial flagellum. This is just one part. This is one part one necessary part. How do you get from an amino acid to that? You cannot theorize your way out of this. The chasm between abiogenesis and the first simple cell is wider than the chasm from the simple cell to the blue whale. It is in no way feasible in a rational world that you can get from a brick to, don't call it a brick, call it a screw. The first amino acid is a screw, and you're asking us to say that we got from the screw to the engine by random screws multiplying. Oh my gosh, you're not even thinking. Change over time. That's your magic pixie dust. That's your God. Random meaningless change somehow creates purpose, order, and design. That's not reality, buddy. That's not reality. I'm not running out of time. Oh, actually, I am running out of time. Gosh, thank you for pointing that out. All right, Dark Admiral. It expanded through time and so is not eternal. Wait. And so many emojis. And the universe is composed of matter, physical substance, time, and space. Okay. Rain, God of the gaps, works both ways. Just because we don't know doesn't mean it wasn't God either. It isn't necessarily all unicellular life. Amoebas don't have flagella. First, protocells would be by definition simpler than any current life. You know what? Darwin had this excuse because all he had was a microscope. We know way more about the simplest of simple cells and the complexity. This level of complexity here is just one thing. The various processes in, let's see if this smart biology, this one's great. Oh,
but to make up for all these lost,
let me see if okay, this is amazing. So this is DNA, right? This is the mechanism. This is the robot that reproduces DNA. Now, here's the trick question here. Since DNA is the software that runs all of our hardware, that tells all of our cells what to do, right? DNA is in every single one of our cells, and it is the software that tells all of our cells what to do, right? Everyone agrees with that, right? What's telling the robot to replicate DNA? Boil your head on that one for a minute. You are using a picture that makes it look like a mechanical device for ease of understanding. That picture is way more complicated than you know. It's all way more complicated than your understanding. The world is not fine-tuned for humanity, though. If you eat the wrong berry, you'll die. If you touch the wrong frog, you'll be paralyzed. Natural disasters are hostile to a majority of all life on Earth. You know what? I need to get onto actually the Bible. So I'm going to start in Romans, guys. And since the universe expanded as an infinitesimal thing, it obviously had an origin, and so a beginning, and thus is not eternal. Yeah. Nothing needs to tell a robot to replicate DNA. The function is simply what it does. No one needs to turn gears. This isn't a turning of gears. This is a complex process. You might not understand what this is doing, but so DNA, the strands of DNA actually run in opposite directions, right? So this machine has to measure out a DNA strand when it's replicating it, and then loop it around and then sort of replicate one side of it backwards, in backwards order, in order to produce another strand of DNA. This is a very complex process this machine, this little robot here, is doing. It's not just gears turning. I mean, if that doesn't blow you away, I mean, that's the thing about science. I love science because it's so amazing. And like somehow an evolutionary minded person can look at that and say, well, yes, of course, gears have to rotate. It's like, bro, that's a robot doing a complex process. And it's doing this, by the way, like, I think like, I can't remember how many of these there are in your body, but this is happening all the time in your body. Just hundreds or thousands of these, millions of, I don't know. There's a bunch of these things all the time. Where is the God turning the gears or telling the chemistry to duplicate itself? It's a great question, isn't it, Rain? I want you to meditate on that question. Because something is telling that little clump of proteins to do a very complex process, and it's not the DNA telling it to do it, because it's the thing replicating the DNA. How this doesn't blow your mind. I mean, as a Christian, it blows my mind. As an atheist, it should nuke your brain. The human mind simply collapses under the weight of trying to even fathom God's infinites. I know, it's like the bigger we get, the more complex it gets. The smaller we get, the more complex it gets. It's the complexity of the design of the universe is unfathomable to us. And yet there are those of us who say, oh yes, random meaningless chance made this all happen. Because it had to, because I refuse to believe in a creator God. That's a choice you're making to ignore reality, to hold on to your faith. Spectre says, which is why what evidence for abiogenesis we have found has been found in places hostile to life. Okay, that's it. All right, I'm not going to say I'm giving up on you guys. I'm not. I will never give up. I will always try to convince you guys to use your brains rather than your ideology. But as it is, King James Bible Online, it is time to get to the book of Romans. That is projection. You act like I'm not full of wonder over nature. Oh, well, I'm glad that you are. You then reduce it to an agent of must have built it. Your worldview is one that sucks life out of it. No, it's not. Turning it into robots. Your words, not mine. Well, I'm using a familiar metaphor of something that is doing a thing that it's designed to do outside conscious. I don't even know if, I mean, I don't think that little jumble of proteins is conscious. Do you? And it's not programmed because it has no DNA. But somehow or another, and I would use the word miraculously, that thing is performing a very complex function. Like all day, every day, in every single one of us, probably in every single creature on Earth, I'm sure. I mean, that's astounding. That is just astounding to my little human brain. Again, the more we learn, man, the more we learn, the more astounding God's creation gets. Your mind is so narrow that you believe things must be designed to become great. No, I'm looking at a thing that is astounding. And I'm saying, because I'm a rational person that doesn't have an ideology that says there can be no God, that it's designed. Because how can it not be designed? How can that have come up by random meaningless chance, dude? Oh, time and time? Time is your God? I don't think so. It's a mechanical representation for ease of understanding. It's oversimplified, and so it is blown out of proportion by the layperson. Okay, dude. Okay. Whatever you say, man. All right, Romans chapter 1. Let us begin. We have less than a half an hour left. Paul, servant of Jesus Christ, called to be an apostle, separated unto the gospel of God, which he had promised. I might do both chapter 1 and chapter 2, just because chapter 1 is just mostly preamble. Which he had promised afore by his prophets in the Holy Scriptures, concerning his Son, Jesus Christ our Lord, which was made of the seed of David according to the flesh, and declared to be the Son of God with power according to the Spirit of holiness by the resurrection from the dead, by whom we have received grace and apostleship for obedience to the faith among all nations for his name, among whom are ye also the called of Jesus Christ. To all that be in Rome, beloved of God, called to be saints, grace to you and peace from God our Father and the Lord Jesus Christ. First, I thank my God through Jesus Christ for you all, that your faith is spoken of throughout the whole world. For God is my witness, whom I serve with my spirit in the gospel of his Son, that without ceasing I make mention of you always in my prayers, making request, if by any means now at length I might have a prosperous journey by the will of God to come unto you. For I long to see you, that I may impart unto you some spiritual gift, to the end ye may be established. That is, that I may be comforted together with you by the mutual faith, both of you and me. Now I would not have you ignorant, brethren, that oftentimes I proposed to come unto you, but was let hitherto, that I might have some fruit among you also, even as among other Gentiles. I am debtor both to Greeks and to barbarians, both to the wise and to the unwise. So as much as in me I am ready to preach the gospel to you that are at Rome also, for I am not ashamed of the gospel of Christ, for it is the power of God unto salvation to everyone that believeth, to the Jew first, and also to the Greek. For therein is the righteousness of God revealed from faith to faith, as it is written, the just shall live by faith. For the wrath of God is revealed from heaven against all ungodliness and unrighteousness of men, who hold the truth in unrighteousness. Because that which may be known of God is manifest in them, for God hath showed it unto them. For invisible things of him from the creation of the world are clearly seen. This is funny, because this is what Alex O'Connor was quoting in the beginning of this argument, which I touched on yesterday. The invisible things of him from the creation of the world are clearly seen, being understood by the things that are made, even his eternal power and Godhead, so that they are without excuse. Just like showing you guys these micro, not organisms, but these micro like mechanisms, like the DNA replication. Like you can see that now through the miracle of CGI, but those were not built by creationists trying to clarify, how necessary it was for biology, for the body to be created by God. The obvious design was not made by Christians to show off the obvious design. The obvious design was created by evolutionists who believe all of this stuff. But when they did it without even thinking, wow, how obvious does it make it that this has to be designed? because you are without excuse. Because that when they knew God, they glorified him not as God, neither were thankful, but became vain in their imaginations, and their foolish heart was darkened. He's talking about some of you in the chat. I want you to think about that. Because professing themselves wise, they became fools and changed the glory of, wow, this is so spot on with what we're talking about. Change the glory of the uncorruptible God into an image made like to corruptible man, and to birds, and to four-footed beasts, and creeping things. Wherefore God also gave them up to uncleanness through the lusts of their own hearts, to dishonor their own bodies between themselves, who changed the truth of God into a lie, and worshipped and served the creature more than the Creator, who was blessed forever and ever. I mean, that speaks so much to, like, the creature, meaning the creation, right? You worship the creation. You think this all came about through random, meaningless chance, rather than acknowledging, especially, boy, these guys were without excuse, and all they saw was leaves and snail shells and right, just the perfection of the design that we can see outwardly. Now we can see how complex. It's a million times more complex and designed when you go subatomic. You are even more without excuse than those Paul was writing to 2,000 years ago. Who is blessed forever and ever. Amen. For this cause gave them up unto vile affections. For even their women did change the natural use into that which is against nature. Isn't that funny how it sort of just follows? You reject God, you worship the creation, and then you reject the very nature of that creation and give in to your own lusts. And unnatural lusts, by the way, because that's the funny thing. It's like, oh, no, it's all natural. It's like, bro, we're clearly designed for a singular biological need, right? If you want to go with science, there's a biological need that is natural. The unnatural biological needs are, by definition, unnatural. And likewise, also the men, leaving the natural use of the woman, that biological need, burned in their lust one toward another, men with men, working that which is unseemly, and receiving in themselves that recompense of their error, which was meet. And even as they did not like to retain God in their knowledge, God gave them over to a reprobate mind, to do those things which are not convenient, being filled with all unrighteousness, fornication, wickedness, covetousness, maliciousness, full of envy, murder, debate, guilty. Sorry, I do love to debate. Although I'm not that good at debate, because I'd like to think about questions. Like when you guys are asking questions, and I don't have this like I don't have a bunch of stuff just wrote, right? It's like if you ask me a question I haven't heard of before, I don't jump to some pre-written, thing. It's like I like to think about it. If I don't have a good answer, I will let you know. That's a good question. I'll have to think about it. Deceit, malignity, whisperers, backbiters, haters of God, which is many of the atheists. And if I don't believe anything, how can I hate it? Why don't you believe in it? It's because you hate it. Haters of God, despiteful, proud, boasters, inventors of evil things. See a lot of that on. Anyways, disobedient to parents, without understanding, covenant breakers, without natural affection, implacable, unmerciful, who, knowing the judgment of God, that they which commit such things are worthy of death, not only do the same, but have pleasure in them that do them. So this is like the Mike S. Miller wants to ban porn thing. Porn is destructive to the people who partake in it. it is like sexual slavery. So if you're like, oh, I'm anti-slavery, it is super destructive to people. I mean, what was it like around 60% of all divorces, at least in this country, claim porn addiction as one of the reasons why parents get divorced. And what's worse for society than children not having both parents at home? I mean, we've seen what is done to society. So anyways, having pleasure in them, even if you're like watching porn, you don't think it's bothering anybody. It's just you in your bedroom with your phone under the covers. Nobody sees anything. Nobody's not hurting anybody. You're having pleasure in them that do the thing that is destroying society. So, I'm not gonna jump into the next chapter. I think it's probably a bit much. I think that was good. Rain says the Old Testament advocates for literal sexual slavery. Sell your daughter for money. That's not sexual slavery. That's arranged marriages. There's still an arranged marriage is an arranged marriage. You may not like it, but that's not sexual slavery. Jeff Potts, I have done no such thing as standard historic. I don't know what you're talking about. Jeff is going back and forth with somebody. Spectre. Porn leads straight to Sheol. Indeed. I have done no such thing. There is a standard of historical fact. Even Christian scholars like Gabriel. I don't know. Nicholas says, Jesus loves you. Forsake sin and receive Jesus as your Lord, God, and Savior today. Amen. And hey, if you guys enjoy the little back and forth on all of these kind of conversations, please do join our Discord. The link is in the description. Wait, let me double check. I think we're on this. Is the link? Why is my computer so slow? Get it to work. Can somebody check? My computer is just like. Now my StreamYard is locking up. All right. If not, somebody please do drop the link in the chat. I'm so irritated right now. Okay, Melissa dropped the link in the chat. Thank you, Missy. Let me just close that one out because now I can hear it coming through my headphones. Why do act like you can read people's minds? I'm sorry, Rain. I am scattershotting, so I'm not talking about every single person, but there are people in here. I've met and dealt with enough atheists in my 30 years of doing this that there is a fairly constant truth that probably applies to, I would say, somewhere between 90 to 95% of those who call themselves atheists. They are just mad at God. Something happened to them, and it may not apply to you, so I do apologize if it doesn't. But most atheists, most of them were Christians. They were raised Christian. Something happened to them in their early life. Their mother died. Their parents got divorced. Whatever. Some horrible event that they blame God for. And not just blame God, but they blame God because they believed that if you pray for a thing, Jesus has to do that thing for you because you said it in his name. He said, I prayed it in your name. I used your name at the end of my prayer. For you have to do this thing. You have to save my dad. You have to save my nephew. And something happened where they just got so mad at God that they rejected that he could exist. And in that rejection, they become atheists because they say there's no way that this God that I believed in can be real, because obviously if he was real, that horrible thing wouldn't have happened to me, which is an emotional decision. And then they say things like, well, how can I hate something I don't believe in? The only reason you rejected it and therefore don't believe in it because you hate him. So it's not everyone. And sorry if I hit you with that scatter shot, but 9 times out of 10, man. 9 times out of 10. Phantom says, nah, that's not why I stopped being a Christian. See, you stopped being a Christian. See? What was it, Phantom? What was it? I hit you with that scatter shot and I didn't miss, did I? Says they also don't want to believe in God because it conflicts with their sinful lifestyle. Yeah, look, I was raised agnostic, but I wasn't mad at God. My dad just raised us agnostic because my dad was super like logical guy. He was an engineer, had sort of engineering mindset, obviously. And but for him, he was raised Catholic. And then I don't think I ever got a reason why he left the church, but he didn't leave. Oh, it was evolution. That's right. He did tell me it was evolution. He learned evolution in school, and he's like, well, wait a minute. If this is true, this God stuff must be nonsense, or this Bible stuff must be nonsense. And so but he didn't. There was no traumatic event that like made him reject God. He just thought, well, if this is true, this cannot be true. And so he just like, well, I don't know. Maybe there's a God, but I'm just going to be agnostic. I don't think you can know if there's a God. And that's the way he raised us. Just being, I don't want to say like there's no dog in the fight in that situation, because when you're raised agnostic, it's like, first of all, your moral boundaries. I don't wish any child to be raised atheist or agnostic, because the crap they are very likely to do, because they have no true objective moral boundaries. Well, if they're anything like me, they did stuff that you wouldn't want your kids doing. Of course, then if you have no moral boundaries, then you might not care that your kids are doing those things, which ultimately makes you a bad parent. Sorry, that's the truth. My dad was not a good parent either. But no, so I was never like mad. And so I've always discovered that people who call themselves agnostic, they do have that more of a sort of I don't believe in God because I don't think it's rational, that kind of a thing. But if you straight up say you're an atheist, no, I will not believe in God. That is, again, it's not everybody, but 9 times out of 10, that is a very emotional position to take, that you're an atheist. I won't believe in God. Not, maybe there's a God. Could be an explanation for things, but I don't think it's possible to know. That's agnosticism. That, at least the way I was raised. I don't know what the dictionary definitions are, and I don't really care, but that's just been my experience in my 53 years of life and my 30 years of being a Christian. So Phantom says, oh, okay, I call myself an atheist as in not a theist, but you'd label me as an agnostic. Oh, okay. All right. That makes sense. All right. Then I missed you with my scatter shot. I also don't believe your theological worldview has objective morality. Wow, that's a broad topic. Let's go. Jacob says all agnostics are atheists. I disagree, at least in the definitions that I understand. If you have a different understanding definitionally, please share. Spectre says it in fact doesn't apply to most atheists I know. In fact, most I know are on their way to seminary. Oof. That's terrible. Theist, someone who believes in God. Atheist, not one of those people. No, atheist is the opposite, right? A is the antonym. So a theist is someone who believes in God. So the antonym of that is someone who does not believe in God. I don't quibble over definitions. I'm happy to adopt a different one for the sake of the discourse. And it's good so that you're not hit with that. Yeah, and then there are just people who don't understand the difference between atheist and agnostic. So Houston says they can be atheists without proof that God doesn't exist as long as they admit that their belief is a faith. Yeah, that's the thing, is they don't believe in God, but belief in atheism is a belief that random meaningless chance creates. Random meaningless chance creates design, order, and purpose. Well, maybe not purpose. At least physically, design and order. Random meaningless chance, because there is no other intelligent mechanism or designer. Random meaningless chance creates order and design. And I think just objectively, reality says that's impossible, right? Second law of thermodynamics, everything goes from order to disorder. That's entropy. We live in an entropic time-space continuum where things are winding down. Everything, by force of the laws of nature and physics, goes from order to disorder. The entire theory of evolution is ass backward to that reality. That instead, if you add time to random chance, you get order and design. It doesn't work. It's you're believing two distinctly opposite thoughts. It doesn't make sense. Perceived design. It's not perceived, dude. It's not perceived. What are you talking about? Did you see the robot replicating DNA? You're saying that's perceived design. It doesn't make any sense. Correct. I do not believe in God. I am not a theist. I am an atheist. Right. Right. I do not believe in a God. That does not mean I believe there is not a God. There you go. That's agnostic. Believing in God is hardly rational, though, is it? Yes, it actually quite is. Where did God come from? The question in itself is wrong, because there is no where in eternity, right? The where is a posit of location in time space. Time space was created by God, which means there is no where, there's no locale, there's no where and no when. He is the beginning and the end. He is outside of time and space. That's not what entropy is. It's wrap it up. Please look up the definition of entropy. I'm just using the second law of thermodynamics, dude. Christian scholars already go, stop sinning every day. It says, if one doesn't believe in the existence of God, then one believes in a mindless creator, since it is a fact that we all come from someone and somewhere. Interesting. The DJ says the problem with perception is that if design and free will are perceived, then nationality might also be perceived. Oh, rationality might also be perceived. Well, design isn't. The more we look at subatomic. Is it subatomic? Is that the right? It's not subatomic. But even the subatomic, the more we look microscopically at our mechanisms, the more you cannot look at it and say, that's just perceived design. You saw the rotor, right? The cellular, not cellular, the rotor on the cell. Does that make it cellular? No, it consists of proteins, right? Amino acids, whatever. You can't look at that and say it's just perceived design. That's a freaking machine. Machines, it's a machine that serves a purpose. And if one protein were missing from that machine, never mind like if one part of the machine of the cell was missing, the whole cell would cease to work. If one protein were missing from that rotor, it'd be like a tooth missing from a gear, right? I mean, the gear might still work, but it wouldn't work at highest efficiency. It's like, it's my wife. Oh, that's right. He gets out at 2. Okay, I gotta go. I forgot. My son does not get out at 2:30 today. He gets out at 2. So I have to go now. This is a lot of fun. Please do join us in the Discord. Drop the link again. And yes, I do reject evolution. I don't reject like small changes in creatures. And I don't reject natural selection. But those are not mechanisms that can explain the Darwinian evolution of species. So anyways, please do jump over to the Discord. Gosh dang it. What the hell is that? And hopefully we'll see you there. Otherwise, I'll see you on the next exciting episode of Cross-Examine.
Back in line, you dog! On your feet! Get them going!